You're walking down a street. Someone you don't recognize is walking toward you. And before you can think about it, something happens. A flicker, an assessment, a tiny shift in attention. You clock them. You evaluate. You move on. It takes less than a second. You didn't decide to do it. It just happened. That reaction, that automatic involuntary response to an unfamiliar person, is older than language, older than fire, older than almost everything we think of as human. But here's what nobody tells you about it. It was never about what they looked like, and understanding why changes everything you think you know about where prejudice actually comes from. For most of human prehistory, your entire world was about 25 people. That was it. Your family, your group, the people you were born with. You knew every face, every voice, every smell. Everyone else was unknown. And unknown in a world without laws or hospitals or second chances meant dangerous. A stranger arriving at your camp could be a scout for a competing group. They could carry a disease your immune system had never encountered. They could be testing your defenses before something worse arrived. So the human brain built a fast automatic threat detection system for exactly this situation. Neuroscientist Elizabeth Phelps and her colleagues at New York University have documented that the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, responds to unfamiliar faces before the conscious mind has processed them. In under 200 milliseconds. Faster than a blink. This is not racism. This is not hate. This is not even dislike. This is a survival circuit that was built for a world where a stranger could kill you before you finished the thought. The question is what happened next. What did ancient humans actually do with that reaction? Because the answer is more complicated and more hopeful than you might expect. The first thing to understand, the ancient brain was not scanning for skin color. It was scanning for coalition membership. Evolutionary psychologist Robert Kurzban at the University of Pennsylvania ran a series of studies in the early 2000s on how humans automatically categorize strangers. What he found overturned decades of assumptions. When people from different racial groups were shown working together toward a shared goal, racial categorization in the observers dropped dramatically. The brain stopped encoding race. It started encoding team. The ancient threat detection system, Kurzban concluded, was never designed to read race. It was designed to read, are you with me or against me? Skin color only became a cue because in a world before global travel, it correlated roughly with who was in your coalition and who wasn't. It was a proxy, a shortcut. And shortcuts are always imprecise. But the ancient brain didn't just scan for threats, it also did something more interesting. It built one of the most powerful tools in human history for turning strangers into allies. Almost overnight. Here's what the archaeological record shows. Ancient humans did not avoid strangers. They traded with them, married into their groups, shared knowledge. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, 75,000 years ago, researchers found shell beads that could only have come from the coast, found 30 kilometers inland. Someone carried them there. Someone exchanged them. Anthropologist Kim Sterelny at the Australian National University has documented that the exchange of gifts and materials between groups was one of the defining features of behaviorally modern humans. Not isolation, not hostility, trade. The brain built a threat circuit for strangers, and then immediately built a second system on top of it for turning those strangers into allies, because a known ally is worth more than any amount of avoidance. An ally can warn you about predators in their territory. They can trade resources you don't have. They can offer their children as marriage partners, widening your genetic pool and strengthening your group. The ancient human reaction to a stranger was never simply fear. It was threat assessment, followed immediately by opportunity assessment, both running at the same time. But then something changed. Around 50,000 years ago, humans began spreading across the Earth, and they started meeting people who looked more different than anyone they had encountered before. And the brain's coalition reading system got stretched in a way it had never been stretched before. Modern humans left Africa in significant numbers around 70,000 years ago. They spread into Europe, into Asia, eventually into the Americas and Australia. As groups separated over thousands of generations, they adapted to different environments. Different altitudes, different sunlight levels, different climates, and physical differences, visible ones, emerged. For the first time in human history, when groups encountered each other after long separation, the people they met could look genuinely unfamiliar. Geneticist David Reich at Harvard Medical School has used ancient DNA analysis to show that these encounters happened. Modern humans met Neanderthals. They met Denisovans. They interbred with both. Not avoided, not destroyed, absorbed. Most people outside of Africa carry roughly 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. Some populations in Oceania carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA. The first encounters with genuinely different-looking humans did not produce only conflict. They produced children. But here's the twist that changes everything. The research suggests that modern race-based prejudice isn't ancient at all. It's new, very new, and understanding where it actually came from is the most surprising part of this entire story. Here is what the research actually shows. For most of human prehistory, groups that encountered each other treated race as an almost meaningless variable. Coalition mattered. Territory mattered. Resources mattered. What someone looked like was a distant signal at best. The anthropological record of hunter-gatherer societies studied by researchers including Christopher Boehm at the University of Southern California shows remarkably little evidence of race-based hierarchy. Status hierarchies existed. Conflict existed. But they tracked resources, alliances, and individual behavior, not appearance. Race as a fixed, heritable, hierarchical category. The specific idea that some groups are fundamentally superior to others based on visible physical characteristics appears to be largely a product of the last 500 years. Historian Ibram X. Kendi, in Stamp It from the Beginning, documents how race-based hierarchy was constructed specifically to justify the economic systems of colonial slavery. It was not discovered. It was built, deliberately, for a purpose. The ancient threat detection circuit, one that fires in under 200 milliseconds, is real. It is old, but it was never pointed at race. Someone pointed it there and then taught everyone it had always been that way. You're back on that street. Same person walking towards you. Same flicker, same automatic scan. But now you know what it is. It is a 300,000-year-old survival circuit that was built to read coalition membership in a world of 25 people and no second chances. It was never built for cities of millions. It was never built for a world where the stranger 2 seats down on the train is not a scout, not a threat, not an enemy. Just a person trying to get home. The ancient brain built the fear. It also built everything you need to override it. The alliance system, the curiosity, the trade, the willingness to sit down with someone who looks nothing like you and eat from the same fire. That is what ancient humans actually did when they met strangers. Most of the time. The fear of the stranger was never about the stranger, it was about survival. And the most human thing we have ever done more than fire, more than language, more than anything is learn to override it.